I hate old people. If you are fucking old, get up and get out of here right now. Right now. Well, you're old, Miss Rivers. Well, I don't see me. If you are old, screw you. You have to look, not me. If you're old, start now. By the time you get out, you'll have heard 2/3 of the act. It's good. Oh, don't you know? Do you like old people? And when they're proud? I'm 97 years old, and you smell. I hate you.
Welcome back, friends and fans, to the Complete Guide to Horror podcast. Today, we're discussing Relic, a 2020 Australian psychological horror movie. Relic had its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival on 25th of January 2020 and was released on the 3rd July 2020 in the United States by AFC Midnight and 10th July in Australia on Stan. And it's really important to know that Sundance is quite a prestigious film festival. So I didn't know that. I only discovered that last time when I was going through the Wikipedia. And, you know, the whole plot follows this, I guess, 3-generational group of women who, you know, the, I guess, widowed matriarch of the family, aka the oldest bitch in the group, she goes missing. You know, it's revealed that the family hadn't really contacted her in some time. Her house is filled with black mold that seems to be growing. And, you know, the plot follows Edna, the matriarch, as we mentioned before, as it's not quite clear whether something's consuming her. Maybe it's the black mold. Maybe there's a demonic presence at play. Could it be dementia, a mixture of the three? I did actually like this movie the first time I watched it a couple of years ago. When I rewatched it last night, I didn't really like it as much as I did the first time. And I think it was because, you know, when you watch a movie the second time, there's less surprise, there's less suspense at play. I also just didn't think it was that scary. And I didn't really care about the ending the first time I watched this. I thought it was a good ending. When I rewatched this, holy shit, I hated the ending. Sorry, VP.
No, it's fine.
He's sorry. Oh, he's sorry. He's sorry.
So BP, Relic is your pick of the month. You know, really great choice. Why did you recommend Relic for us to watch?
Yeah, I watched Relic 6 months ago. I actually got recommended this from someone, actually. Watched it, had a good time. I'm always trying to support Australian horror movies. I know we all unanimously think there's really nothing good out there. So I'm trying to find some good gems amongst the crap that, you know, Prey and
B3D.
Yes, all those shitty ones. So I'd watched it, like I said, about 6 months ago. I had a good time watching it again. I still appreciate it. There are some flaws in it, but I still think it's actually a decent Australian film. And with this film, it is interesting in the fact that I find, I guess, the whole ambience and the sound effects unsettling, which kind of sells the movie for me. Moves the movie along. In fact, it's not really scary in a lot of areas. It's often just the creaking that's going on. The general moodiness of the movie, it's just wet. It's a secluded house out in somewhere in Melbourne. It's shot in Melbourne, I know that. So somewhere out in whoop whoop. But yeah, no, I had a good time. There are a couple of flaws here and there, but I still think it's a decent horror film, and for an Australian horror film, it's a better one than some of the ones we've either discussed or I gotta watch anyway.
Yeah. I compare this movie quite a lot to The Babadook, but one thing I think this does a lot better than The Babadook is it's quite a self-contained original movie. So, you know, while there may have been some other films, not necessarily horror-related, around dementia, around mental health issues with elderly people, and I guess the strain on families trying to care for their parents and grandparents. This is quite a good concept for, Australian horror movie. Likewise, I don't think this movie suffers from other, your typical Screen Australia, Screen New South Wales funded movies where, yes, they have to showcase Melbourne because that's part of the criteria for getting funding. But I like that this was quite a different side of Melbourne than what you see from other movies that are filmed in Melbourne or promote Melbourne, like, TV shows like Kath and Kim or other movies, which I can't actually name any off the top of my head. But whenever they do shots of Melbourne, it's always Flinders Street, Federation Square, like get tourist
ding ding.
Yeah, like tourist traps. And this one I was like, okay, that's Skyline. I don't live in Melbourne.
I think it just shows her driving on the bridge and that's about it.
Yeah. I was like, this could be Melbourne, but it could also be Brisbane, it could also be Sydney, it could also be Adelaide, and that's what I appreciate about this movie. It doesn't really ham fist it down your throat, like, oh yeah, fucking Melbourne, eh? Like, some other Australian movies, which I think, is this really done by Australian actors or are they just trying too hard with an accent? But anyway, before I go on and on, Coop, what are your overall thoughts on Relic?
I didn't mind it. I like that you mentioned the similarities between this and the Babadook. Also kind of reminded me a little bit of the movie Mother as well. Just in that, particularly with the ending, there's sort of that metaphorical aspect of like decay and how she sees this formation of the bruises and the rot on her mother at the end of the movie as well. But I enjoyed it. It actually took me a couple of sittings to watch it, because when I first started watching it, I was like watching it before bed, and because it is kind of slow moving to start off with, you kind of got to be paying full attention because there's lots of little things in the background going on in this movie that I thought were particularly clever, and it just adds to that suspense. So if you really strap yourself in to watch this, it's actually like quite good. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I definitely preferred Babadook to this, but I still think this is a good example of like an unnerving kind of almost claustrophobic kind of movie, particularly with those scenes where they're like trapped within the walls of the house. But yeah, overall I did enjoy it.
Yeah, nice. I will personally fight you after this podcast because I hate the Babadook, so we'll have
You're wrong.
I'm not a fan of slow burn A24 style movies, which Relic definitely fits into. But even from the get-go, we have that opening shot where it's the mold, it's the water. You see, I'm a huge cinematography fanatic, so even the shot where it's the Christmas tree lights being reflected in the puddle, I was like, wow, that's really good. That's like high-level cinematography shit that is quite missing from a lot of Australian movies, horror or non-horror. But likewise, I think the acting, particularly with the Edna, the main evil bitch in the movie, so the elderly bitch, I should say, she was really, really good. She was really scary when she needed to be.
Yeah.
She also brought a three-dimensional aspect to the character who, if I was an actor and I got given a script where I have to be someone possibly suffering from dementia, but also suffering from family neglect, but also have to tap into some evil qualities to chase my children and grandchildren around this very dilapidated house, I'd think, how the fuck am I supposed to do that? This is too many things all at once. But the actress embodies all those qualities, and likewise, you can feel the pain from the daughter and the granddaughter trying their best to help their grandmother and mother in the family, but also recognizing they have a lot of guilt because of the fact they haven't clearly been keeping in touch with her and kind of left her to fend for herself. Also, the production design of this movie, everything from black mold on the walls to the little bits of visual effects here and there to symbolize the growing aspect. BP, your pick of the month. What were your favorite parts of Relic?
The scene Coop touched on, which I just called the claustrophobic scene. I remember watching that the first time and getting really wigged out, and then watching the second time when as soon as she turns down that hallway and then kind of goes, okay, I'm going to go back, and then realizes like there's no like exit. I'd be shitting myself at this point because she just like and then she's running around in this hallway, doesn't know where she's going. And then there's that scene where she's going around the corner and then she puts the torch back to the other side. You see the wall coming in ever so slowly.
Yeah.
And then it's getting to a point where she's starting to, it's kind of like Willy Wonka where he goes into that small room and they have to duck down. Gets to that point where she's sort of ducking down as well. So I thought that was really good. Yeah, that worked really well. I thought the pacing was good. It is a slow burn movie. So as you said, Coop, at the start, I found it engaging. The thing I like with Australian movies is most of the time, like it's just the accent or just the general ambience can be enough to carry the movie along, like Little Monsters was. Some of the American movies are just really crap with kind of keeping that attention span. I find it's just either maybe jokes we don't get or something we don't really understand. So you kind of can zone out. But I think this movie has all that. There's a couple of good shots. There's some shots in the forest. There's a shot where the grandmother's looking out the glass window, and I think it does like a panning or something to some of the plants or something near it. Yeah. That was a really good shot. And I like the cold, wet feel of the outside of the home being sort of like a warm area to be, or even though it's like, cluttered and heaps of shit everywhere. And that scene, I didn't pick it up until I watched the second time, the scene where she looks under the bed, because didn't realize there was actually a breathing. Yeah, that was kind of creepy. And then just like she gets the book hit on her head. So I don't know if she threw it or what the go was with that, but yeah, so that was really good. And this is also one of the few horror movies, surprisingly, that doesn't actually use any music, like soundtrack in it, which I really like for a horror movie that can just get away with using a score and just using sound effects. And I said to Justin earlier, this movie reminded me of Titanic in the sense that you just hear an endless amount of creaking going on in this movie. And it just reminds me of like when the iceberg hits and you can hear the creaking in the whole cabin of obviously it's starting to go down.
There's a section where the walls are closing in, like the ceiling's closing in on her, and she has to kick upwards. And then when she climbs upwards through the room, it's like gravity's changed, and then she falls to the side and she's in another hallway. That was shot really, really well. There's quite a few very subtle shadow people in the background of this movie. I first noticed it in the opening scene where she's just standing in the house naked with like the Christmas trees and stuff. And then there's one sitting down. I think he either sits down or he's sitting down and then stands up in the background, and then it cuts from there. But there's a few scenes throughout the movie that do that, and it's always really like unnerving and subtle when it happens. So probably those two things were probably my most favorite thing about it. I guess just the unnerving factors of the movie were really good.
This being a Screen Australia funded film, I do have some issues. First one being that I just thought it was quite boring for the first 45 minutes to an hour. And my criticism for this goes on both rewatches of the movie. Even though there's a lot of things that help move the scenes along, we're introduced to that Jamie character who was locked away during the game of hide and seek. Him and I think it's his dad or whatnot that are the next door neighbors. They're first alerted to Edna going missing. I was just waiting for something to happen. And even though, I try to implement this rule where I don't have my phone on me, I keep it in a separate room while I'm trying to watch a movie. Otherwise, I would just be on my phone 24/7, miss important parts and think, oh shit, what happened? I have to go back and rewatch it.
Euphoria.
Yeah, like I don't know. I was struggling so bad watching the first like half of this movie. Then it starts getting really good because we see some tension. We see, the conflict between the granddaughter trying her best to figure out what the fuck is going on with her grandmother. And then it starts ratcheting up the tension. The last like 15 minutes I really, really liked. But the ending, for me personally, I just don't see what the fuck the filmmakers were trying to say. Like, were they trying to say it was all dementia this whole time? Was it a combination of the black mold in the house that was, because black molds can seriously fuck up your physical health. Where they try to say that was the reason why the grandmother was so delusional and like out of the way and everything. But likewise, just the themes of, dementia with elderly people. I mean, there's reported cases of, elderly people with dementia that do get abused. So when it came to the scenes where she gets fucking hit in the face so many times by her own daughter, I took that very personal. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe she just could have hit her on her shoulder or like her leg or something, like break the bitch's leg. But in the head, like, damn, that was. And then she has that moment where she's like, no, I have to stay here. I have to be with her. And it ends with, the same shot where she's shown to have the black mold starting to grow on her. And it's like, okay, that's to signify dementia is a hereditary, I was going to say trait, not trait. Like it's trying to say the black mold is a hereditary disease that will follow and, go down the bloodline. But it sort of was trying to say too much at one time. But, I would have also liked to have seen, and I talk about this every single episode we do, but I would have liked to have seen more marketing with this movie. I think at most I saw like a quick 10-second teaser on not even Facebook, I think it was Foxtel actually. And they were trying to say like, oh, watch it on Stan, it's a great movie. But the poster for me doesn't really say anything about what this movie is actually about. Likewise, I don't necessarily like the acting of the daughter and the granddaughter. For me, it felt very much like they got these actresses off starnow.com and they're like, oh, well, they were the first to audition. Let's put them in the movie. And I know they tried their best and I've been very, very picky about it, but it's only because I know a lot of Australian actresses and actors who would have done a much better job. So it's hard not to scream on this podcast when we do an Australian movie to be like, hire my friend instead, because they would do much better. But there's a whole variety of factors why people get cast for certain reasons. Could be geographical, it could be, they might also be the friends of the director, or maybe they were the only ones that did show up to the audition and they were in fact the best. But that's it. Anyway, enough of my 2-hour rant. BP, did you have any least favorite parts about Relic?
Nothing overall that stood out. I guess something we all touched was that it does take a while to get into it. In saying that though, I didn't mind it. I actually was sort of sticking to watching it the whole time and not really getting distracted, which was a good sign. When you sort of, I guess, look back at what happened in the whole film, I guess a lot of it really happens in maybe the last 30-40 minutes of sort of 90 minutes. So you sort of think, well, the first 50 minutes is sort of them, trying to find their mum, doing a search party, going to Melbourne to find a like residential care. And then it's them sort of sorting out filing. And then that's when things start to sort of up the ante. So I guess maybe a bit more utilization with some stuff earlier on might have sort of sealed the deal. I guess the marketing, because I hadn't heard of this film till earlier or late last year. So I don't know, it's one that's sort of swept in, come through, and I don't know if it got a theatrical release. I didn't see it come through. I disagree with Justin. I think the acting was good for what it is. There's not like a lot of characters in this. There's maybe 6-7 people at most. The cop, the neighbors, the 3 women. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and the retirement, the aged care lady, but that's about it. So, yeah, nothing really that's outweighing the positives in this film.
I thought the acting was pretty strong in this, to be honest. Fuck you. But yeah, I feel like is it Robyn Nevin who played the grandmother? She definitely stole the show. But I think one thing that was good about this that I forgot to mention earlier was that there wasn't a lot of overuse of like exposition in this. Like one bit that I really noticed was earlier on, they were like, oh, she's been putting food out for whatever name. And normally if it was any other movie, the follow-up thing would be, what, that dog's been dead for years. But like it wasn't pandering to a dumb audience. It was just like, you just picked that up just from that sentence alone. And they weren't pushing any kind of, extra dialogue that wouldn't make sense in a reality situation. So I thought that was pretty good. I thought the granddaughter was kind of like they probably could have explored her character more, but I kind of thought it was just kind of like a natural. It just felt like a natural acting job, like a natural performance in that sense. And just before I mention my dislikes, you might have noticed, I know BP noticed this right at the start, I had some weird looks on my face, and that was because I'm reading here, and I had to check it on different pages to make sure someone hasn't whacked this in just for a bit of a laugh. There's 4 producers on this movie. 3 of them I've never heard of, and the 4th one is Jake Gyllenhaal.
What?
I did see.
And I checked it. I was like, surely someone's just like put that name in there. Does he even like? I didn't even know he produced movies, but I don't. I'm not. I don't have a lot of Jake Gyllenhaal facts or trivia in my head, so who knows? But I clicked on his like wiki page and shit and had a look, and it's in there under his producer credits.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's his Night
Strange.
Stories Productions company.
Oh, so it is his company that. Okay,
Yeah.
that's whack. So I mean, it's probably they put his name on it for value. Then probably I imagine he probably didn't have a lot to do with it, but. Because yeah, it just kind of shocked me. I was just reading it as we were beginning, and I was like, "Huh? What? What is it?" Okay, that's odd. Anyway, I just thought I'd point that out because I thought it was amusing bit of trivia. With dislikes of this movie, yeah, I agree with you, Justin. The pacing, as much as like I do love a slow burn and suspense, they could have added more to it or beefed it up a little bit to make it more interesting as it leads up to like the climax. And it does kind of go from 0 to 100, like as soon as she's in the walls, and then that boom, it's just like taking off from there. So they could have done more to reel people into the story along the way. For those who I was in that mood of not, being easily distracted, basically. So yeah, I guess that's on me, but that's my sort of criticism.
The first one is that although they portray mother and daughter, Emily Mortimer is only 16 years older than Bella Heathcote, who plays the granddaughter. I mean, we all know teen pregnancies, so I don't necessarily see that as like a shocking bit of trivia. Bella Heathcote also starred in The Neon Demon, this really bizarre art house horror movie, which, holy shit, makes America's Next Top Model look like a playground. So Bella Heathcote played a model that's humiliated by a casting director played by Alessandro Nivola, who is, in real life, the husband of Emily Mortimer, the mother. So it's like a little family triangle going on. But BPU pointed this out to me earlier today. The movie uses sound effects to mimic sensorial shishashla and memory loss described by dementia patients. So that's another important attention to detail that, the filmmakers went out of their way to use the sound effects described by dementia patients, which, adds to that realism with this movie that you don't really expect. So it was a nice little surprise. And finally, Edna's final form, so the demonic form, if you like, it's actually an advanced animatronic complete with facial controls and breathing mechanics. I didn't actually pick that up both times I was watching it. I thought maybe it was a little bit of CGI or some type of prosthetic as opposed to an advanced animatronic. So that definitely would have added to the budget. So for me with Relic, I am going to give this 6 black mold spotches out of 10. I think that, it's still really good. I know I should give it a higher rate, especially considering I gave Smile the legendary 8.6 out of 10. But for me, I can't go past my biases with Screen New South Wales. I also would have liked more elements, but hey, that's just how I feel. BP, how many black molds, splotches, whatever, do you give this out of 10?
I'd give it 7.5. I think, as we said earlier, there's not really a lot of negatives I found. As I said, the pacing a little bit, and a couple of things here and there, but overall, really good Australian horror. A more recent one that's quite good that I recommend to anyone. Gets quite unnerving and unsettling near the end, and as we've also said, I guess the payoff works quite well. So yeah, 7.5 black molds out of 10.
Nice. And Coop, what's your verdict?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Byron. I'm going to give it the exact same score. I reckon it's 7.5 dementia metaphors out of 10.
Nice. So that brings the overall score on an average to 7.5 out of 10. I think it's fair that because you two had the highest score, that was quite similar. We'll go with that. So, yep, mark it down. 7.5. Dementia, Black Mold, Christmas Tree, walls caving in out of 10.
Or 7.5. Sort of.
I think it's quite unique. I think this is one movie where no, it doesn't warrant a sequel, but I think with some improved visibility for this movie, it might be seen as a underrated gem, similar to the Babadook, similar to like a lot of horror movies which we cover in season 2. But likewise, it's just surprising, when the Babadook first came out in 2015 or 14. I'm going to get my dates wrong and someone's going to comment being like, you don't know the Babadook? And I'm like, no, I'm not Jenna Ortega in Screen 5. But at the same time, that movie was everywhere. Everyone knew about the Babadook. Everyone wanted to watch it. Everyone was fascinated by the trailer. And yet this movie, I think, has the same level of appeal in terms of taking a concept like mental illness or physical degradation and turning it into a horror movie. But for some reason, most people just don't know about this. And yet, Jake Gyllenhaal is a producer. I had no idea until you pointed that out.
Yeah, it shocked me.
It's frustrating because, we've run this sort of course of quite a few Australian films that, Little Monsters was the other one that we did, that sort of went under the radar. And it's as though, they're like, yeah, give us the money, we'll make the film. But then when it comes to marketing or distribution, they're like, we'll just put it in 10 cinemas, and if it does all right, then that's good. And it's like, no, do a wide release, get some marketing out there. And this film could have made a lot more money. I don't know how much it cost to make. It just says 2.2 million it made. So I don't know what it would cost to make. It's just kind of frustrating. It's like banging your head against the wall. Screen Australia invest that money, yet they're still kind of pussies when it comes to box office side of it. They're like, no, we're not gonna, or just bring it out at lavish cinemas or gold class or
it doesn't have to be Crocodile Dundee or a Baz Luhrmann film to get worldwide marketing. It's not that hard. It's bullshit.
Because I think I found Sissy through the sense of
I have a lot of negative things about that movie.
So do I. Sort of saw that on events coming soon. I think that was the only place I saw Sissy coming out, and then that was it. And I think I may have seen it on a bus actually.
Yeah,
that was it. Nothing else. No trailer. Nothing online. Nothing coming into my feed. Nothing.
And yet, a movie like Relic would be so easy to cut together. Very short 1-minute trailer that wouldn't give away too much about the movie.
Yeah.
Use the opening shot of the grandmother with all the water and the black mold, have some shots of the breathing thing under the bed, her in the woods area.
Even the claustrophobic scene. Something.
Yeah. Use that as the main piece in the ending where it's I don't know, strobe effects of her being almost squished between the walls, and then just have Relic.
Yeah.
Guarantee events.
I can picture it, and it would do well.
Yeah. Get event cinemas to post the trailer, have the link that clicks through to your boutique, your gold class, as B people saying, do the savers or student days or whatever. This could have easily made, well, actually, I don't know how much money it would make in the Australian box office, but it still would have done a lot better than 2.2 million. So, we need to change the title of this podcast to BP, Coops, and Justin's marketing tricks for Australian horror movies.
Tips, tricks, and hints of the day. Yeah.
It's just, even though I spent a good 5 minutes talking about the things I didn't like about this movie, I still think it had so many stronger qualities to warrant a wider release, a better promotional push. And the frustrating thing about Stan in particular is Netflix, while they don't reveal figures for most of their shows, they might say something like, Squid Game was watched 17 trillion hours or whatever. Stan doesn't release anything, so we don't know what's popular unless you go through that section that says so hot right now or
trending
popular. Yeah. And it's always Final Destination 1 or Below or some Leonardo DiCaprio film from the 90s. But I've never seen Relic in that section, and I think it deserves to be there.
Yeah, well, I purely heard it through word of mouth.
BP and Coop, thank you both for joining me again today.
Thank you.
Listeners, keep an eye out for our next episode, which is on Sinister, the 2012 half found footage, but also half real footage, I guess, if you like horror film, that stars Ethan Hawke as generic white guy who stumbles upon some seriously scary, fucked up snuff films and a demonic presence. If you like this episode, give us a like, comment, share, tip, etc. Please don't tag Screen New South Wales in this. They will hunt me down and kill me. And if you hated this episode...
Ow! Jesus! What are you doing, Mum?
Hey, small fan, when one video ends, just open up another one. It's called binge viewing. Go ahead. I support you.